See this logo here? You can find this logo on YouTube Music, or go to my channel, the JTF Student Podcast, go to the podcast icon or playlist icon to see more podcast episodes easier. Welcome to the JTF Show Podcast. Now, here's your host, JTF. Happy Proud Month to all, and I already made a video there of why I say Proud Month instead of Pride Month. And that's the video of when I came out. So if you want to also see that, I think it would be really great for a lot of people, maybe especially LGBTQ plus people, and I understand for LGBTQ plus people, and especially trans people, especially now. If you don't like this episode, for the person who we're going to be talking about, it's Michael Knowles. So if you know, you know. It's fine if you skip this episode. I understand if you skip this podcast episode for that particular reason. I understand, definitely, since it is what people will call Pride Month, or I call Proud Month. Again, I thought about why I say Proud Month instead of Pride Month. It's not really necessarily to do with what you might think it is. So, to shield a little bit, watch the video. If you want something better, more positive for LGBTQ plus people, especially trans people especially now, watch that one. And a lot of my other videos talking about LGBTQ plus, you might be very, very surprised on a lot of my positions. So if it sounds like I'm saying one thing or saying another, I already dealt with all those things. I already did those things. I did my duty as a content creator to already lay all that out already. But if you think you can handle this episode, that's fine. Welcome. This is not being facetious or cruel or a jerk or funny. If you need your emotional support, whatever, for this episode, especially if you're trans, please have it. If you're like, you know what, I think I'll be fine, but just in case, as serious as possible. And of course, disclaimer, some of the things that Michael Knowles is going to say will be offensive, very bad for LGBTQ plus people, especially trans people. Viewer discretion is advised, so you've been warned. Because a lot of times I did not do that, and some people do not look at the description, so I'm saying that right out of the gate.
Lots of conservatives are embracing Caitlyn Jenner's candidacy for California governor. And you know that I have been a little slower to embrace the stiletto-clad decathlete. And a lot of people have said, oh, that's terrible, Michael. It's transphobic. Let's do it. It'll be great. Caitlyn is totally going to turn California conservative again. Well, now Caitlyn has spoken out for the first time about his campaign, and you know how much I hate to say it. I can't. Can I even get the words out? I was totally wrong.
My first comment right off the bat is, listen, Mike, listen. We know you're transphobic. We know you hate trans people. Even when trans people are on your side, like Caitlyn Jenner. We know you're the Achilles heel and the affection and disease of Trump Republicans and the conservative area. This was a very long time, by the way, and my grammar might not be so good, so bear with me. And the main reason why most likely Republicans and conservatives will never win an election or being in office for a very long time. We know, but we're still going to talk about it. And I might add some things in there. I might be saying everything exactly from my notes, because again, it's been a long time, and yikes, I have better skills. Video on skill issues and improvement and update. All those things. Speaking of an update, I'm a little bit I sneezed at least 2 or 3 times before I pressed play for this podcast episode. It was like, I guess, a minute or two apart. I should be good, but that's also one of the reasons why I'm drinking water and also dry throat sometimes. So stay hydrated, folks. Stay hydrated. Please, especially now. Like, it is very hot. It is very, very, very hot out there and the outside world. Another comment is, that's true, you're transphobic and you don't want to, because I guess you don't want to support Caitlyn Jenner because she's trans, and that's the only reason why you don't like that. That's just sad, but I mean, it's Michael Knowles, so I'm not surprised. And, some things I might say differently today, a little bit more polite, a little bit more Christian-like, in a sense. I was still a Christian back then, but, maybe I wouldn't, say you're an idiot or you're stupid. Well, maybe it depends. It just depends on what he says. If it's idiotic or stupid, then I will. I'd say it's idiotic and stupid. I'm trying to get the perfect shot here, but you know what? I think that this will be fine. You might not be able to see the fish necklace, but you've seen it now, so you know it's there. That's why I need your financial support so I can get a camera that will just do that, because quite frankly, this is not necessarily a camera pro or whatever. This is my tablet, and because of the space that I have, I can go so far without reach and just, be difficult. So, just say. But hey, if you can't, you don't have anything burning in your pocket for Patreon, just give me a few cents on PayPal, if even. The link's in the description down below. Not to shield, but also be like, hey, if you want the good content, it takes financially. That's just how things go. I don't love money because the love of money, not money itself. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evils, all kinds of sins or iniquities. I think as some translations say, or the root of all evil, as I think the King James Version says. For a Christian, money should just be a means to an end. Here's the thing that I need or want. I need this amount of money to get it, and that's it. I don't love it. I don't hoard money. I should give it to the poor. I should give tithes and offerings to a good church that's actually using it for good. That's not just using it for its own benefit. It's just using it for private jets, not for the poor, but for themselves. That's wrong, by the way. Make sure where the money flows if you can. Especially if they don't say it, or if they do kind of say it, but it just depends. You're led by the Holy Spirit with that one.
If Liz Cheney is so afraid of the Capitol riot on January 6th, what would she have done if she lived through Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles reality? What alternate universe was she living in then? It's still going on, right? But that doesn't matter. When people it's not even just Liz Cheney, when these squishy Republicans, you parrot Democratic talking points and say that the January 6th was the single worst, most horrific, shocking, terroristic event in the history of the United States, and they totally ignore what happened just 6 months prior during the BLM and Antifa riots. What they are telling you is not that they oppose political violence, it's that they think that some political violence is kind of justified and some political violence is totally unacceptable. And the political violence that comes from the left, even if they don't like it, they think that is, look, we just have to expect that. That's just what they're going to do. And we're not going to do that. And we can't really stop that. So we're just going to tolerate the leftist political violence. But we're really going to stop it on the right. And I just sort of think, no, let's treat it all the same. Let's treat it. But
But you don't do that, Mike. You don't do that. Come on now.
Cannot do that because they serve primarily to be the court jesters in the kingdom of liberalism.
My comments with those things is the right, it doesn't matter what happened in the insurrection, but it definitely still matters when it comes to Portland and Canosa. What? And Chop or Chaz, because of the businesses. Nothing wrong with businesses. I'm not full-on communist leftist, I'm just saying. I don't want to eat the rich necessarily. I just want to take some. That's for a different time. Different time. But we had an actual insurrection of the Capitol, or attempted, or at least, yeah, attempted, or their intent was an insurrection, attempted insurrection of the Capitol, and most, not all, but most guys like Michael Knowles say, well, they were stupid, people did stupid things. So again, by using your logic, Portland and Chaz, Chop, all of that was just stupid people doing stupid things. Then. Wasn't insurrection, wasn't burning down the whole country, it was just stupid people doing stupid things. I mean, come on, let's be real here. Of course, like, I agree with the premise, the idea that, no, we should treat them all as bad. Some of them were insurrections when it came to the Summer of Love. Some of them were. Some of them did, like in some cases, like we see in California now, burning police cars. But, especially now, mainly with California, most of it's peaceful. That was like one instance where there was a lot of police cars, and it seemed like they didn't do anything because all they were doing was like wheelies, doing donuts. Really, it's like, okay. And I think the burning of American flag and the Mexico flag and the guy service and all that stuff—that's just like a little part of California doing that. Everywhere else, with the No Kings protests and all those anti-ICE protests, peaceful. That is just a fact. So it's not all peaceful, nor is it all rioting and looting. It's like a little bit of rioting and looting, stuff that should be a little bit insurrectional, possibly, or their intent might be, at least back then with the Summer of Love, was to insurrect some police departments because, a cap, all cops are pigs, as I definitely disagree with, well, has that ideology. You are, in some way, if I'm getting that correctly, if you try to, in some way, take over a police department, you are doing an insurrection, in a sense. So in that sense, that is true. But yeah, only you will find that on Left Wing or Right Wing podcast. You only find it here on the JTF Show and Podcast. Also on on YouTube Music, by the way. Just say. But again, the premise, the ideal is that, they were both very bad. We should not do those things. And yes, there were some innocent people who sadly were in the mixture of the actual violent insurrectionists, and those people should have been pardoned. But everybody, no. Especially the ones who later on did, you guessed it, more crime because they were not remorseful of the crime that they committed, because they believed they were doing a good thing, and the president basically gave them the go-ahead. So they were like, time to get a gun. Others were like, time to get some CP, child pornography. And they were arrested for that. I think one was, depending on your beliefs, were like, okay, the cop didn't need to shoot him, but he was also doing a crime, so it depends. And, are you consistent with your beliefs regarding that situation? See how this is nuanced and precise and factual and not hyperbolic and blatant? Not blatant, yeah, I'm just saying. Well, I hate to burst your bubbles, quote unquote, Mike, but most BLM protests of the Summer of Love were peaceful. It's actually usually sometimes cops come in and sometimes either agitators or anarchists or people who want to rile up things to riot and loot, so it's not really BLM. Or at least the movement. The organization, I really don't know. And, they're a big luxury mansion, so can you really trust them? The organization? Nah. I don't think you can. I don't think anybody should. But they might have changed. I don't know. Where are they now? Who knows? So, they're only there when it's big. Interesting. Nah. If you're ever going to help the black community, that's not You can't just come in then there and have a big luxury mansion. Well, black businesses were kind of were sealed out or were broken up by the rioters and looters back then. Possibly, sadly now, prayerfully, all will be well in California. Jesus Christ in the name, amen. In LA, specifically Jesus, or especially Jesus Christ in the name, amen. And ICE will get better. ICE will actually do their jobs and not be, well, a lot of people call it thugs or criminals or people who would do some of that thugs or criminals. And ICE is doing that. Prayerfully, they'll stop that in Jesus Christ in the name, amen. Nobody's tolerating rioting and looting. All that the left is doing and saying, what I'm just saying is we need to know why the rioting and looting is happening, and you're just saying let's stop it and not talk about why the rioting and looting is happening. That's what's going on. Yeah, there's a reason why. It doesn't justify it like the left thinks it does, or at least the extreme left. But, especially now, not necessarily on the left. I'm definitely not on the right. There's a reason why I'm a Christ centrist, a Christian first and foremost, and a centrist, depending on the situation, center, right, to left, progressive, or conservative, or liberal, or even libertarian. I just said something that the left just burns. Also the right, because I said centrist, so they hate that too. So.
Caitlyn, speaking out to Sean Hannity on Fox News. It was a very long interview. You can go watch the whole thing. It's perfectly illuminating, but there were 3 distinct moments where I thought, okay, this is telling me what I need to know about the Caitlyn Jenner candidacy. The first one, it starts off well. It starts off with a recognition of what I think is perhaps the most important conservative virtue. It's certainly up there, which is prudence. It's the common sense, and that's what Caitlyn is going to base his candidacy on.
I've kind of played around with that term. And originally I started out as a compassionate disruptor. And then I was thinking the other day, I think I'm more of a thoughtful disruptor. I have common sense. Okay, I see what's going on and I see no common sense in politics and why they're doing it, besides only for political reasons.
A man dressed as a woman, wearing high heels, is telling you that he has common sense. And the thing is, in California politics, relatively, he probably does. And I don't mean this in any insulting way. Bruce Jenner has been an outspoken sort of Republican, more Republican than Democrat for a long time. And I think he actually does have a fair bit of common sense. There's just one problem. There's just one glaring problem, that he fundamentally misunderstands human nature, or if he doesn't even misunderstand it, if he merely just wills to contradict human nature, that's a problem too. You can't claim the common sense when you're a man wearing stiletto heels. You just can't, no matter how smart you are on fiscal policy, and I think he's fairly moderate and reasonable on fiscal policy, no matter how reasonable you are about crime, he's much more reasonable than any Democrat politician on crime in California. On immigration, we'll get to immigration in a second. He's a little squish on that. But sure, he has relatively more common sense on a lot of important policy issues. But he doesn't have common sense. Okay? But when it comes down to it, he doesn't have common sense. So on the parts where he's relatively good as a candidate, what is that about? It's about the economy, stupid. To quote James Carville, it's all about the economy.
I have always been on the Republican side just because I have conservative economic values. The old same, lower taxes, less regulations, a more friendly business environment. And we don't have that in California. But socially, I've been much more progressive all my life. I get it. People do need help. We need programs. But you cannot have social programs without an economy. Doesn't happen. You just don't have the finances to do it. And that's what's happening here in California. And so it's been so frustrating for me. I don't care. I work.
By the way, that's the video, not me, even though I hear planes a lot. Not necessarily because of the Cold War that we might be in with Iran. It's just because of where I live. I live literally basically a base. I'll just say that, a base.
Well, honestly, I like everybody. I'm friends with everybody.
I don't like everybody. There are people I don't like in life. But
I can get along with anybody, Sean. I can get along. So honestly, I don't really
I
care
mean, she's on Fox News of all places.
if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a libertarian, vegetarian. It doesn't make any difference to me. I want solutions. If the Democrats are able to come up with great solutions, I am behind that 100%.
Oh, gosh, this is almost the worst answer he could have given. Because it starts off okay. He says, look, I want typical 2000s Republican economic policies. I want less regulation. I want lower taxes. I want a friendlier business environment. Okay, that's fine. Then he says, but on the social stuff, I'm quite progressive. Oh, well, that's not great, because ultimately politics comes to culture, and culture ultimately comes to religion.
And I'm going to get into that, but first let's catch up with my comments here. So here's the problem with the whole common sense thing. If I'm correct, Destiny, which, by the way, he did a terrible thing, obviously. So it's mainly the ideal, like with Michael Knowles, it's the ideals, the ideas. If they're good, then okay. Unlike Michael Knowles, if it comes from a particular person or something like that, then no. But it's like, no, that makes sense. If Democrats have something good, then I'll take that. If Republicans have something good, then I'll take that. That is what I think a great president should do, is that, like George Washington, who was not a perfect guy, but was very powerful via what he did, and the example that he gave us, which is to listen to others and take advice from others. Even though you're over them, they have a say. Very powerful there, but we definitely do not have that right now, because the current president doesn't even believe in his own intelligence. And what are you supposed to say about that? What? Come on. But the point is, that doesn't mean I'm with Destiny 100% on everything. It's just saying that this particular ideal, this statement, this opinion that anybody can have, which is good, is pretty good to an extent. Destiny also talked about this. Now, it's not the whole common sense social construct thing, but common sense is subjective, because common sense for some people more than 100 years ago was slavery, was common. Was common sense. For some people in the 60s, was lynching and beating up black people, so common sense is very subjective. And when you say common sense, that's your common sense. What the sense that you think is common, because it's common to you, the sense that you have something that is common. That's what you think as common. So if, or when you say common sense is like X, Y, and Z, well, what does that really mean? Now, there are some things people can universally say that's common sense, like child abuse is wrong, that's common sense. That's not like, well, that's your common, no, that's just the common sense all right around. That's like universal, basically, to an extent. Like, that's the, that's common sense to an extent. So it depends on what you mean and what you're talking about. But, I think you can use the word common sense, but just understand, if it's something that's like religious, then it might not be so common sense, in a sense. It depends. They did, they're not getting rid of sense, but if I'm correct, they did get rid of the penny, so yikes yours. We still got sense, but they're trying to get rid of it. And that's the Trump administration, by the way, of today. So, take that for what you will, the right-wingers. Well, Caitlyn Jenner for governor, not for Michael Knowles, because what she's actually going to do is what some people want on the right, which I guess he should be for her, but to be a good person, kind of. But of course, Michael Knowles doesn't want that, because he's, well, stupid. He's not so informed, and don't want to work with anybody different from himself. Again, Caitlyn Jenner actually is saying, hey, I can work with Democrats sometimes. that that's kind of what we need in politics, actually, especially now. And that's how it's supposed to work. But, of course, Michael Knowles doesn't like working together with anybody else but himself. And he wants his own ethno state. I guess because when he talks about Anglo-Saxon way of living and things of that nature, it's like, I don't want one, chief. I mean, conservative arena or area, definitely not ethno state, quote unquote. In some cases on the right it is, other cases no. Michael Knowles isn't necessarily Nick Fuentes, but they do like with gender, it's correlative but not causal. There are some things you can correlate with, but one does not necessarily cause the other, depending on what it is. You know. So working together with the opposite party to actually get stuff done is progressive. I mean, yeah, it is. That's why I'm not a political conservative anymore. You're right. Yeah, in a sense, because I guess for the right, especially now, working with anybody who's not them is like progressive and woke, even though it'll get the job done, but that's bad apparently. So which I thought which used to not be a right wing or conservative motto. It should have been what basically it used to be a whatever works works. I'm gonna conserve what works and not conserve what doesn't. Bergen conservatism, which counterpoints talks about. I agree with him on maybe 80, 75% of things. I mean, not everything, but a big chunk to an extent.
Right, that's where it derives from. And these religious premises. What is a man? What is a woman? What is our human nature? What are we here for? What are we doing? What is the nature of liberty? Is liberty the same thing as licentiousness, or is it the opposite of licentiousness? Very important debates. Our founding fathers thought one thing. All the smart people throughout history and in politics thought one thing. And in modernity, we think another thing. But then he starts even beyond that, where you think, okay, look, if you lower taxes but completely gut the culture, that's not a good trade. That's the trade that Republicans made for 20, 30 years now, and it hasn't worked out very well for us. But also, he's not even saying that he's that fiscally conservative, because what he's saying is, not only am I progressive in the sense that I think men can become women, I'm progressive in the sense that I think we should have a big welfare state, right?
How dare you help people? I mean, basically. But I understand why some people don't like welfare state. But it's like, maybe we're against the welfare state, but maybe not against welfare. I don't know, maybe.
I think we need social programs, but you need a good economy to support that welfare state. He's basically...
Which makes sense.
Just Bill Clinton. This is just what the New Democrats did. This is actually, in terms of...
Just say it. Say the thing, Mike. Say the thing. Say it, socialism. Say it.
Political analogies here. You had this period after Reagan, after the end of the Cold War, you had George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and to a lesser degree Barack Obama, who were all basically the same president. Certainly the two Bushes and Clinton. They had the same policies. Make the economy better for business, especially big business, and permit basically anything anyone wants to do on the social front. And support the consequences of those lifestyles with bigger government programs. That's what they all did. So if you want to go back to Bush and Clinton, vote for Caitlyn Jenner. That's what you're going to get. And then you just get into the pandering, which is so Clintonian. So and actually fairly Bushy as well. Remember, you had Ronald Reagan who says, I'm a conservative. Then you had Bush come in, Bush the first, and he says, we're going to be a kindler, gentler nation. And Nancy Reagan famously responded, kindler and gentler than whom? How dare you, George Bush? You're insulting us. Then you had Bill Clinton come in.
I mean, it was telling the truth, but
Because I feel your pain. And then you had George W. Bush say, I'm going to be a compassionate conservative. What? As opposed to all the cruel, inhumane conservatives before them? And that's what Caitlyn's saying. Look,
basically.
I get it. We need to take care of people. I'm just for solutions. I get along with anybody. I loved Sean's response. He goes, I don't know. I don't really like everybody. Some people, I think, maybe not. No, Sean.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I do agree to an extent. But let's take a little bit of a break, and when we come back, we'll continue on with, well, whatever this is. My sponsors are you guys, those who support me on PayPal or Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
I get along with anybody. And then the tell that Caitlyn has here is he goes, and honestly, and honest.
We're back, honestly. We're back, obviously. Obviously.
And honestly, when people use the phrase honestly, or when they say, to be honest, to be totally honest, that's always a big red flag to me, because what that tells you is they haven't been honest with you up until this point.
It depends on the context, because some people are like, if I'm gonna be honest, sometimes that just means like I'm gonna be off the cuff, I'm gonna be so honest with you, or it might be I'm gonna be honest as in I'm actually gonna say what I have not said to you. So it just depends.
You need to alert your audience to the times that you're being honest, then you're not being honest at other times. And then what I felt was really, really a low point of the interview, of an already pretty low interview. He gets to a very important issue in California, immigration. Here's his answer.
And before we get her answer, sorry for almost misgendering Caitlyn Jenner there, because I'm not. Because my building is still up. Before we get into her response, before we get into her answer on immigration, let's get into some comments, shall we? Yes, we shall. Culture doesn't come from religion. Religion is part of culture, and vice versa. You can have one without the other, really. Yeah, I think you can, or some cases can't. I think religion sometimes creates culture, and sometimes in certain cases culture will create parts of religion. If your culture is very hugging trees, it'll not be surprising if you're a little bit more Buddhist, if not possibly Hindu, especially if you have a vegetarian-like culture environment. And vice versa, if you're a lot more Hindu and Buddhist, I would not be surprised if you're a little bit more tree-huggy in a sense of a way. And you might be a little bit more vegetarian due to, depending on which type of Hinduism you have, you can't even eat meat because they can be, I forgot specifically, so religious Hindus out there, I'm sorry if I'm butchering this. If I'm correct, because not necessarily they're made in the image of a god, obviously, no, I'm not going to try to Christianize Hinduism, that's kind of weird. I think because that cow could be a reincarnation of your grandpa in a sense. I'm not trying to be funny. I think that is basically somewhat that, or it could be a god, I think, or since one of the gods is a cow, it's kind of offensive, so don't eat cow. Again, I don't necessarily remember specifically why some religious Hindus do not eat meat, or at least cow. But that I wouldn't be surprised that in that particular neighborhood, when there's a lot of religious Hindu people who have that practice, the culture will be very vegetarian. It'll be very animal friendly to the point of not eating meat. So again, it can go either way. Religion can influence culture, or culture can influence religion, or an openness of religion, or an openness of a particular type of culture. So it depends. I think you can't have one without the other, but I think even then you'll still have some religious thing. Even the most non-religious countries, their culture, I'm assuming for some, might still have a lot of religious people. Maybe not, I could be wrong. So that one remains to be seen. I'll just look that up, folks. Basically. I mean, yeah, you're a cruel and inhumane conservative, Michael Knowles. So, yeah, some people need to say, hey, I'm an actual good, decent conservative, okay? Especially now, but will I call him inhumane? I think it depends on what we're talking about, to be honest. Cruel in his rhetoric, maybe. His actions, I don't know. I really don't know. Inhumane, maybe some things he says is inhumane, and maybe some of the stuff that he talks about. I don't know about his actions or his fruits, but his actions and his fruits, I think, are what he's saying because he's a talk show person. He talks. He doesn't really do. He talks. He's got a podcast. Yeah, I think the Michael Knowles show is a podcast. Yeah, it is a podcast. So yeah.
I am all for the wall. I would secure the wall. We can't have a state. We can't have a country without a secure wall. You have two questions here. One is stopping people from coming in illegally into the state. And then the second question is, what do we do with the people that are here? We are a compassionate country. Okay, we are a compassionate state.
Buzzword.
Some help. I mean, some people we're going to send back. Okay, no question about that. But I have met some of the greatest immigrants into our country. I had a guy the other day, and he was Spanish, and I've known him for 17 years. He is the nicest, greatest guy. He would make, I would do everything for him to stay here.
Kind of like the ideal citizen, which I know refusal is already in the how dare you say some illegal immigrants are the most citizen-like. Well, they are. If they're really basically being the best ideal citizen, legalize them. I think what Trump is trying to do with the app of people who want to deport will give you a free plane and maybe one day will lead you back. I think all of you have heard this. The worst person that can implement Trump-like policies is Trump himself. But that particular policy, I can see if you're an ideal citizen, if you're the ideal citizen of this country, but you're illegal. I think, depending on the situation, if you came here just for economic or for kind of a better life and you didn't run away from any type of persecution, I think we should get you maybe some money, maybe a little bit, or at least a free plane ticket back to your country. Wait, like maybe 3-ish years, have everything a legal process. Remain in Mexico. I don't know if I like that policy or not, but I understand it. Then come in the right way and basically do everything else that you've been doing for the past whatever many years. But if you've been here for like a decade, I think go to a particular facility, not a concentration camp, but this is a particular facility where you go do illegal stuff, then come back and do everything that you've been doing for a decade. That makes sense. Of course, criminals, get them out here. Get them out here. Get them out of here. If they were here for like maybe 5 years, get them out. Let them go through legal process and they're back. If they've been here for at least a year, yeah, get out of here. But if they're, regardless of how many years they've been here, if they are running away from political and especially religious, or at least, especially just any type of persecution in general, have legal facilities so they can do it and be here legally. Let them be safe. Don't bring them back to a place where they can basically die and get killed. Especially for a lot of Christians who might come here. I think some would come here legally, but some might not because, they couldn't. And I think that's the best way to actually handle the immigration issue, but, both sides will be mad at that. To an extent.
So you have to deal with it. We have to modernize. We have not modernized our immigration system in the United States to make it possible to people to immigrate into this country. It's such a ridiculous
How dare she?
We haven't made it possible for people to immigrate in here. We take more immigrants than anyone else on earth, and it's not even close, and we've done it for 60 years. What are you talking about? We need to make it easier for people to come into this country. Make it easier. The majority of Americans want to dramatically reduce all immigration, both illegal and legal immigration. According to fairly recent polls, there's a great Harvard-Harris poll that shows this. What on earth are you talking about? Well, look, I think we need to build a wall. Yeah, I support immigration enforcement. Okay, I'm with you so far. And we need to grant amnesty to the people who are here. What? Why? Oh my gosh, Caitlyn, you want to give a path to citizenship to tens of millions of voters who are going to skew overwhelmingly Democrat?
Which, by the way, isn't necessarily true. A lot of people, especially if it's South America, are very conservative, if not straight up Christian nationalists. Like, you have your base. If you make them legal, it will not go the Democrats' favor necessarily. It might go to Republicans. Like, saw this with the last 2024 election regarding Trump and Harris. Like, surprisingly, the amount of Hispanics who voted, or Latinas, voted for Trump is like, yeah, don't be racist towards them. They'll most of them will be on your side, actually. Like, a cheat code here, like, you're really not using it. I think Trump kind of tried, but like, I don't.
Sorry to break it to you, there have been plenty of public opinion surveys about this and wish casting about how these illegal aliens are Republicans. They just don't know it yet. That's just not true.
The bar, though.
It never shows up. There's no evidence of that. So you're saying, let me catch my breath here. I'm so frustrated by this. You're telling me
he's so triggered right now, folks.
Give up the gender ideology. I've got to totally accept that. I've got to give up the fundamental distinction in human nature. Totally mainstream this delusion, which we've at least generally held the line on in the Republican Party and in the conservative movement for some years now. I've got to give that up so that we can get a squish Republican who is fairly immoderate on economics, who is politically totally unpracticed, and who wants to give amnesty to tens of millions of illegal aliens. And who's going to lose the race, by the way? That's why I've got to give up the most fundamental premise that the left is trying to push and has been trying to push for years. Are you insane? Are you out of your mind? Totally crazy. It just shows you the naivete, the political ignorance, where he says, look, you've got to do something with the illegal aliens. No, you don't. No, you don't. They came into this country illegally. I'm not saying you've got to deport them all. That's probably impractical. But
who knows? I'm assuming his opinion on that has definitely changed, right? Or has it actually conserved? Have you conserved that opinion, Michael Knowles? Well, I have no idea. You can comment down below if you're a fan of Michael Knowles or if you're a hate watcher of Michael Knowles. Let me know.
Why on earth do you have to give them amnesty? Just leave it as is. But they're living in the shadows. Yeah, they should leave. They broke our laws.
Here's my thing. I'd rather know how many illegal people are here so we can associate the situation and get the help that everybody would need via not needing to hide and not needing to not know. I think we should all know how many illegal people are in here. So I think it makes sense. I mean, not for a trap, but for like, hey, if you're illegal, go to this facility here. Tell us about how many years you've been here, your profession, all that stuff, and see if we can keep you here for now, or you have to leave and come back legally. Like, seriously, I think that'll be great, but it's like, he wants them to remain them in the shadows so they can get out. How can they get out if they're in the shadows, Mike? The math ain't mathin'.
They're in our country illegally. I think they should leave. But if they're...
The only way they could leave is if we know they're
not going to leave. You don't need to encourage it. You don't need to incentivize it.
Agree.
Totally wrong-headed. Not a whole lot of common sense there. The big problem with Caitlyn Jenner is not even his policies, which are pretty squish. In some cases, they're further left than most Democrats, and in some cases, they're just kind of moderate, I don't know, Arnold Schwarzenegger type Republican, Bushy Republican, Clinton type of policies. Okay, whatever. Is that better than Newsom? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, fine. But the real issue is, no matter how much Caitlyn says, I'm not going to push the transgender ideology. If you elect a man who thinks he's a woman to high office, you are mainstreaming it, especially if you are the party that is at least nominally standing against it right now. Democrats are already trying to mainstream, but if the Republicans do it, then that's over. That's it. We have conceded that. There are conservative commentators and conservative politicians who refer to him as her. And
how dare they recognize an older lady as an how dare they not be jerks? How dare they understand that the sky is not falling when you call Caitlyn Jenner, if you call her she, if you call her she. I think I have something for Mike here that might give him some comfort, that might really help him out with what's going on, because man, it's very hard for Mike here. It's very hard for him.
Why they do it. It's hard not to do it. I did it the other day by accident. I was talking to someone. I said, "Oh, I don't know. I think she's pretty." I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm doing it now too," because it's a very seductive ideology. I'm not saying Caitlyn Jenner is seductive. I'm saying the ideology is very seductive, and people are doing it on television, on the putatively conservative news shows.
Tell
They're
the
calling
truth,
him
Mike.
Pearl. We will be doing
Truth.
and that is too great a cost
Too
for
right.
sort of slightly maybe more conservative economic policies and basically the same immigration policies, maybe a little slightly more conservative. It's just not worth it as far as
It's just not worth it, folks. It's just not worth not being a jerk to a basically passing trans person. It's just not worth it, folks. It's not worth it. Mike, thank you for your bravery of stupidity. Thank you. I don't think anybody would do that. But you can actually, in all seriousness, we can all come to the throne of grace and ask help in time of need, but you must get saved before it's too late. And I think that's really great to do, obviously, as a Christian.
you can tell, because that ideology is very dangerous. You're seeing it being mainstreamed right now, not just in politics, but in Popeyes chicken shops. There was a fella dressed up as a lady who had a breakdown because allegedly some guy at Popeyes, my favorite chicken shop, called him sir.
But I thought it would be Chick-fil-A, but to each his
I'm gonna
own.
be talking to your manager. This guy called me sir. This happens every day. Everywhere I go, I get called sir. I'm so sorry. Why would you call a big ass? Why would you call? No, stop trying to gaslight trans people.
Wait, I'm sorry, did he say yes I did, like, sarcastically, or now he's like, well, actually I didn't. What does he mean? What?
Was that we're crazy? Wait, what? Did you call me sir again? What was that? You said goodnight, sir? This is transphobic?
I think this person's going a little bit too far with it, but at least for me, just say I didn't. I'm sorry if I did, or just say, yeah, sorry if I did, I apologize, because it's like, this, I think I said it again, it's like, to an extent, people, I don't think, sadly, can't live life. They can't live their lives, but if your government is literally out to get you, and some of you have been stranded in other countries because they do not accept your existence, I can understand, especially now, some people are gonna be like this person here. You can say person or their name if you can't say her or she or that woman there. For me, it's like, live life. Most trans people are not trying to harm anybody. Most of them are not trying to go after your children. I think it is the result of social media to an extent to where we can't just live our lives anymore because we gotta be in the know. But you don't have to be in the know. You can touch grass. On both sides.
You're a bigot. Alright, Alex, you know what?
Now he's like, oh my gosh, oh, like this person is mocking them, so maybe they did call them sir, and for that Popeye employee, they also can't live life. Just say ma'am. Like, it's like, I can't say it, they're clearly a guy. They're clearly, like, you're an employee of a Popeyes. Employee and trans person, this is a Popeyes, like, seriously. It's not even a Wendy's, it's a Popeyes, come on. It's just like, live life, just say them. or for the trans person, just, I mean, well, especially now, maybe not, but maybe at least back then when it was maybe not as bad, but I can't say that because I'm not a trans person. But even then, it's like, to an extent, you gotta you gotta fight your battles. I'm not a trans person, but I think trans people can agree with me. Sometimes you gotta fight your battles. Sometimes you gotta fight this. Sometimes it's like, okay, you gotta move on with this. Sometimes you just gotta ignore it because that's just how it is. But as a black person, not to try to do some weird oppression Olympics, but just in general, the buzzword intersectionality, that's just a thing. I understand the language, like, okay, maybe I can just say, as a black person, I can somewhat understand. I don't need to say the intersectionality of a black person and trans, like, maybe not, but point is, the intersectionality, if you want to say that, or just as a black person, I can somewhat understand. Sometimes you gotta say, hey, what did you say? Did you say the N word? And other times I'll be like, listen, I'm in Georgia. I'm gonna get that. It just depends. You gotta pick your battles. You gotta pick your fights. It just depends on the situation. But my government is not actively trying to eradicate me, quite literally. Like, the first thing that the Trump administration did is somewhat similar to what the Nazis did with the, I think, institution of sexual something. It wasn't perverted. It was actually, I think, medical and social was trying to figure out stuff. And it was basically a lot of trans research was there, and they burned it out. And that's why we're starting over again. But the Trump administration is like, no. First thing we're gonna do is basically what the Nazis did. Trying to get rid of trans research with the White House page, I think, and just in websites, government websites, and declaring there's only two genders, male and female, and all that craziness in a sense. So in some cases I get it, but in other cases it's like, sometimes you gotta just move on. A person I know has once said, some things are not worth your blood pressure going up. Some of it is, in other cases it's not. And I think in some cases, cancer can be formed when there's so much stress and anger and strife in your body. It can handle so much to where the cells will mutate and become cancer cells, to an extent, if I'm correct, in some cases. So it's sad to see on both sides. The employee that seems to be joking about not being kind and being a jerk, and the trans person kind of be going too far with it, and like even going out, which what they should have done is just kept walking away and be like, this is bad, this isn't America, but they kept going. It's like, what did you just call me a sure again? It's like, there might be other people there, trans person, calm down, like, I get it, if you, like, I don't fully know, I don't fully understand the old context here, because I'm not gonna get it. It's from the Daily Caller, from the Daily Wire of Michael Knowles. So, but point is, it's like, it depends, and you gotta live life.
I can't wait to this. It's a slur. Do you not understand? It's like if you call the person of color the N-word. Don't. You did on the way out. I don't care. I have the right to be pissed about it. You did. You did, you liar. Cis people need to be held accountable for how they treat trans people. And I'm not going to put up with this anymore. You're crazy, bro. Don't call me bro. Stop.
Okay, he said bro, but I think we all agree that bro is mostly it's gender neutral. Sometimes bro can be referred to for men and males and whatever. I mean, the specific here, because we're talking about trans stuff, so I'm just saying, respectfully, that's why I'm distinguishing men and males in this situation. It might not in some cases, because, it just depends. We use them interchangeably. That's what we do. Sometimes I cringe when some trans people say I went from male to female, and I'm like, no, you went from man to woman, because you really can't change the sex unless if you think you did. But yes, there are transsexuals, but I think even then they're like, I didn't really change my entire sex via biology. We're mainly talking about social stuff here. Sometimes physically to express, but mainly social, mainly mental in a sense, in a good, like in a good way, but in a way that's not like mental illness, but in a way of like we got a mental situation in a sense. It's
slurs at me, you piece of shit.
and that guy does sound familiar to the guy, Mr. Bertram, who was a typical woke guy, but it was like some parts was funny, other times it was like this isn't funny. This is Mr. Bertram, like Velma, was a political ad, not really a comedy, so it was very hard to watch. It was very hard to watch them.
So this guy obviously should not be in a chicken shop. He should be in a padded cell.
And then Michael Knowles diverses from reality and goes full Nazi here. And then, like, dude, you had it in the bag, and now you dropped it. You turned it into a concentration camp. Why?
Not in his right mind. If conservatives mainstream Caitlyn Jenner, then that crazy guy is right. Then the guy throwing the big fit, screaming the words, that guy is in the right. And the Popeyes employees, if they called him sir or whatever, they're in the wrong.
I mean, in a sense, they are in the wrong, because why be a jerk to a person that gave you money so you can give them fast food? Like, the math ain't mathin'. And if you're a staunch Christian, you're like, I cannot call them a guy, girl, they're a guy. Thank you for your services of Popeyes, but get out. Because that's stupid. Respectfully. And if you feel offended by that, where's the hotline? There it is. The, anti-Christian persecution I'm joking, it's not American. That's not American, folks, I'm joking. This will make a lot more sense. The hotline, you can call the anti-Christian persecution hotline for pathetic Christians, very pathetic Christians, and you complain to them, please. Complain to them if you have your triggeredness has gone just so far, of what I said to you. And I'm sorry that you can't live life, basically.
Because we will be tacitly, but clearly accepting the premise that a man really can become a woman.
And if you really think about it, Caitlyn Jenner, if I'm correct, does not act like that person in the video. So it's like you're taking the, I guess you could say, radical trans person saying that's Caitlyn Jenner, and if we elect Caitlyn Jenner, therefore we accept everything that trans person does. If we elect a Republican who might not act like Trump, we're still voting for MAGA, even though they're not MAGA, especially if they're anti-MAGA. That doesn't make any sense, folks. So, hey, real quick, if you want to dedicate your life to Christ, aka get saved, or if you're a backslider and want to rededicate your life to Christ, or if you want the baptism of the Holy Spirit with the evidence of speaking with tongues, those prayers are in the description down below.